Welcome to the Gsmc Business News Podcast, the show dedicated to keeping you up to date on all things concerning business, technology, and the stock market. Get a head start on the day as we keep you updated on the latest goings-on Wall Street, money, jobs, and technology. If you're looking for a podcast to keep you informed and ahead of the game in business, the Gsmc Business News Podcast has you covered.
Right, this is your girl Moriah. You're tuned in to the Gsmc Business Podcast, brought to you by the Gsmc Podcast Network. Again, my name is Moriah, and I'll be your host. Today, we'll be discussing the impact of the pandemic on millennials, aka my generation. I feel like the best generation that's out there. We'll be touching on some stocks some millennials are rallying around. But first, we want to get into just some things about millennials, the pandemic, how we're faring right now. There's been a lot of decline, and then we'll have a segment called Hometown Hero. That's where I would like to highlight just a few entrepreneurs who are moving and shaking some things in the community, okay? Millennials have seen our fair share of economic turmoil. I want to say it started back in 2008 when the housing market crashed, and now we're seeing a pandemic. So it's been a little over 10 years since, if you want to do the math between the '08 market crash and the pandemic. So right when people think that they're recovering, something else happens. So just a side note in business, you always want to be prepared for a time where you need to pivot in business. You just never know what's going to happen. You never know what's going to come. No one could predict a pandemic was going to happen. For example, I know I've been watching some people in the real estate industry, and they saw a hit with the price on goods and raw materials. So the price of wood went up, and the time it took to ship some certain metals for certain housing projects they were doing took forever to get in. It's just been I want to say every industry has either been directly or indirectly affected by the pandemic, especially with the government intervention. Because of the COVID-19 coronavirus, government said, hey, we have to shut down operations. Things went like a totally different way. I don't think anybody ever predicted that we will be working remotely this soon at this capacity. I know with my 9 to 5, they were already talking about working from home and the remote working, but we didn't know if we were going to be able to do it majority of the week, if we were going to only be able to do it twice a week. It was really just in the pilot phases, and now we're full-blown remote working. For the full shift all week, I'm 100% remote right now, and it's definitely different not being able to see my colleagues. Millennials were really focused on that relationship building in the workplace, and not being too informal, but just having a sense of pride in our work. And I do believe that comes with working with others in person. So being from home has definitely had its toll on a lot of millennials. We're normally the job hoppers, as some would call us. Right now, I think everyone is just kind of laying low. You don't want to move too quickly. You don't want to be too eager right now. A lot of people are trying to take calculated risk. I hang with millennials, so my network is millennials, and a lot of us, although we're looking for innovation and we're looking for different ways to grow during this time, it's just very risky. And although you don't want to be afraid to take risks, especially if you're in business, you don't want to be afraid to take risks. However, you do want to be careful with the risks that you take. With entrepreneurship, there is a science behind it. It's all about calculation and calculated risk, and sometimes you do just have to jump for it. But when you see the '08 market crash and you see some businesses go down, you see the real estate industry totally shaken up, And now we're seeing the pandemic, and we're seeing the travel industry has definitely globally seen a drop. You just want to be very mindful of what you're doing. I think millennials have a little bit of the new school, a little bit of the old school, and then we kind of mix it up and make it our own twist. So with the older generation, they're more careful, more calculated, more aware of what's going on. The new generation is no fear, all hands on deck. It's all or nothing. I think the great part of being a millennial, although it has its pluses and minuses, I think for every generation, one of the great parts is that we're right in the middle. So we're able to say, okay, we're going to be calculated, but we don't want to be fearful in our calculations, right? We don't want fear to sway the business decisions that we make. So with watching this pandemic, thankfully, I have not lost employment. I know a lot of millennials who have lost employment, and right now they are full-time entrepreneurs. Some of them are faring well, some of them not so well. There's just definitely been a mix, and we're not the only ones that's seeing the hit, right? Every industry, all kinds of people from all walks of life are seeing this economic decline. And being an entrepreneur, it's hard when your industry is being hit. So a lot of the entrepreneurs I know are freelance. They do a lot of freelance work. They're self-employed. They might have a small team, if that. Trying to keep our costs at zero. A lot of us are dealing with student loan debt. So there's just a lot of moving layers. And with that, we just want to be careful, right? So I think that's one of the biggest impacts that the pandemic is having on millennial entrepreneurs. We're more aware of what stocks we're buying. We're actually more involved with the stock market. I read a study that said millennials hold about 4.6, almost 5% of the wealth that previous generations held at when they were the same age as us. So there's definitely some economic, roadblocks in our way. And I think one of the biggest factors is the student loan debt. So while I got into entrepreneurship, a portion of it was because I wanted to be able to be debt free. The main part of why I got into entrepreneurship is because I don't see myself being tied to such a structured work environment, which a lot of other millennials, I would say, feel the same way. And with that, the creative energy and the collaboration and the working together and the teamwork is, I feel, our biggest point of what we do. Like, we love the collaboration. I love working with other people. I love finding other entrepreneurs who are working on similar projects in their city, and we can link together. The pandemic has definitely impacted the collaboration, because now, while I might have thought about collaborating with someone in another city, I can get around and go wherever I want to. Now, at this point, because of the social distance orders that have been put in place by government, now I'm eagerly seeking other individuals, because although I love the city that I'm in, it is easy to kind of go around the business circle, and you're like, we're all kind of marching towards the same goal, which is great. But sometimes having someone in another location who sees the world totally different from their upbringing and from where they're at, it fosters a greater relationship with business, because it's just two totally different ways of doing business. And sometimes the yin and the yang work, right? So the impact of the pandemic, it's definitely making us more calculated. We're definitely able to see that, the risk might be big. And although it might be a big risk, you can't be fearful taking the risk, especially the way we've seen different economies, different industries get hit during different times in our economy. Like with the '08 market crash, the real estate industry got hit the most. I want to say with the pandemic, the travel industry has definitely got hit, because we were ordered to stay home. You don't want to travel. Travel was limited. If you were traveling at one point during the beginning of the pandemic, you had to have papers stating why you were traveling. I remember when I was still going to the office before I was sent home to be remote 100%. My job had to print out travel papers. And that was something very new. And there was a lot of jokes going around on social media on why we need travel papers and this is crazy. And then you started to feel the effects of the economy, especially on business. I am an entrepreneur when I'm not working. And I begin to see the impact of the pandemic. And, you know, my generation, we're finally out of college. Some of us are starting families now. And, you know, we want to travel. We want to enjoy ourselves before we really get settled down and get on the life grind. You know, we just want to have a little bit of fun. And that leisure was cut completely. There was a summit I was supposed to be attending for businesses and entrepreneurs. And that was cut. It was going to be in a great beach location with lots of collaboration activities and things of that nature with other entrepreneurs, and particularly an overwhelming amount of millennial entrepreneurs. And that was cut as well. So that the pandemic has definitely impacted business for my age group, for many different industries. There's been a few different industries who have seen big losses. I know a lot of friends that I have who are entrepreneurs. They drive Uber or Lyft. And Uber, according to some studies, saw a loss of about $2.9 billion since the start of COVID. They had to lay off close to 3,000 employees. And the ride sharing volume, it wasn't as high as it normally was. You know, it's just one of those things where a lot of friends were just, you know, who are entrepreneurs, they just weren't comfortable driving a car with a complete stranger, because at this point we're made more aware of our surroundings and what's going on and germs. And although I think these things should have been in place, when something this big happens, it does make you look in retrospect and see what could be changed. So a lot of entrepreneurs didn't want to drive anymore. So I do believe that had an impact on the loss that Uber saw. And Airbnb, they saw a loss as well, because again, we're not traveling. And although Airbnb came to grow, I want to say after the 2008 market crash, now they're seeing a hit because again, we're unable to travel. And that's kind of what happens when government gets involved. You know, again, a lot of my friends are just coming of age and finally really digging their teeth into business as entrepreneurs, as millennials. And when the economy shakes up and you have to become innovative, you just have to figure out a different way. You got to figure out how to pivot. I think a lot of entrepreneurs are figuring it out as we're going. You know, it's been a hard, 2020 was a hard year, I want to say, for everyone. Everyone has experienced some type of loss of whether family, friends, family of friends, business losses. You know, I had one friend who was a food truck owner, and she saw a substantial loss because she was not able to operate due to the city ordinance that, she couldn't serve food during the time because of the pandemic. So she saw a major loss during her hot months, which were the summer. That's where she made most of her profits. So a lot of people have been seeing some pretty bad downturns. One thing I can say is that these millennials and entrepreneurs in general, not just millennials, are creative beings by nature. So because we're this creative and because we're always looking for the next innovative thing, I do believe the pandemic is going to birth some big businesses. I know there's one business owner, I would say a serial entrepreneur. His name is John Henry. If you're not sure who he is, do a quick Google. You can do a quick Instagram search. I'm definitely a fan of John Henry. He's a very innovative young man. He just has a keen eye for business. And he's working on right now a new type of insurance called Loop. And it's just a different way to see insurance. You know, the company and the employees are really a family. You know, they offer PTO and they offer different kinds of, benefits and all types of things to help employees understand that they are a part of the team and that they're not going by the wayside. And it's just an easier way for people to connect, especially because now that people aren't traveling as much outside of their home city, town, or state. They want to see their insurance prices drop, and insurance can be one of those bills you just hate to pay. I know I don't like paying my car insurance. I pay it every month. But it's just one of those bills that I think could be cheaper because of my driving record, right? So he's doing some innovative things. John Henry is doing some innovative things with that. So these are the type of entrepreneurs you want to keep your eye on, because again, after big economic downturns, normally the most creative entrepreneurs rise, and they figure out the need of what's going on around them, and they create a solution to the need. And normally that solution can last a very long time if it's maintained, obviously. So again, today we're talking about the impact of the pandemic on millennial entrepreneurs. We just discussed a few things about how we're faring right now, some industries that saw a hit, and some millennials who, just are figuring out different ways on how to survive, right? So we're going to take a quick commercial break. And then when we come back, I want to get into some stocks that some millennials are rallying around right now. We're trying to figure out different ways on how to survive and how to make some money during this economic downturn. So stay locked in. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for a podcast that gives you all of the latest news from the world of finance? Then check out the Gsmc Financial News Podcast. We'll delve into the ups and downs of the stock market, changes in the economy, and news from the world of real estate and technology. From breaking news on the New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, or the overseas market, to updates on the bond market, if there's money to be made, we'll cover it on the Gsmc Financial News Podcast.
It's your girl Moriah, and you're tuned into the GSMC Business Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. And today we're talking about the pandemic's impact on millennials and how these millennial entrepreneurs are faring during the time. And although I'm specifically talking about the millennial generation, there's a lot of different generations who are hopping on the wave of entrepreneurship and trying to figure out, how they're going to fare during this time. No one could have thought that we would be in the middle of a pandemic. Again, a lot of industries they were about to enter into their best season, especially the travel industry. I normally travel around springtime every year, and springtime is when the pandemic really was at, I want to say, its full height. That's when we saw a lot of news coverage. We heard a lot of industries failing, a lot of stocks fell off, a lot of losses occurred. And, you have to be creative. Being an entrepreneur is about creation, it's about creativity, it's about taking calculated risks that are not influenced by fear. And during this time, it's been really difficult to figure out, okay, how do I grow my money? Now, the government has been giving out relief payments, and a lot of businesses were able to take advantage of some of those benefits, but a lot of businesses were not. Unfortunately, there was a lot of qualifications that went into the business, business loans that were going out, and some people were nervous on taking on these loans because they saw job loss. A lot of people were laid off of work. I want to say about 30 million Americans were out of work or are still currently out of work, So there has been, I can name about 5 to 10 people I know who got laid off during the pandemic and became full-time entrepreneurs who are millennials, but a lot of them are older as well. And then one thing that I think a lot of people should have already been involved with, but things take time, is the stock market. The stock market, a lot of experts were suggesting, okay, if we get these relief payments from the government, take some of that check and put it into the stock market. A lot of accounts don't yield as much interest as they used to. Rates always fluctuate. And I want to say my generation in particular is not too fond of traditional structures. We want something different. We want change. And I think we're influenced by the younger generation as well, because they are very fearless. I think fearless to a fault in some cases, but that might be just me getting older and, wagging my finger at the young kids. But I do get inspiration from them. I was just speaking earlier about Twitter and how Twitter is the place for the news and what's up and current. And a lot of young people have been taking to Twitter to talk about what they don't like in business, what they do like in business, and how they're trying to make different or multiple streams of income. And one of the ways that I've always believed that we should be making, just some residual money is the stock market. Now, everyone doesn't believe in the stock market. Some people see it as a risk. I don't see it as that much of a risk. I like takeout. I like good cuisine. So I feel like if I can spend money on food, that while in the moment is satisfying, it doesn't last, then I can take those same funds or take a portion of those same funds and put it towards something that does last, something that will build over time. And, if you have the right guidance and you make the right investments, it can change your life, right? So I think the stock market is a great way to build some money on the side, or, if you're a serial investor, I do think the stock market is for you. I know that a lot of millennials love Robinhood. Robinhood, although it has its pluses and minuses, it is an app that I use. I tend to use different brokerage apps. I don't like to put all my eggs in one basket. Okay, so let's hop right into some stocks that I believe are doing pretty well. These are all the stocks that peaked back in February. Right now, as many of you know, if you're an investor like myself, you see that the market is going through a downturn right now, or a bear market, where they're saying that we're in a bear market. While that is true, some stocks have been doing well. The coronavirus, it's really touched every aspect of the economy, but I would like to say there's a few companies who have who've been able to kind of not just shock, but I would say have positioned themselves in a way that people trust in them. They trust in the brand, the company, and they trust in the growth of the stock. So the first one we're going to hop into is in the doggy industry. I am a dog mom. I have a pit and a Yorkie named Pharaoh and Sebastian, and I have spent more than enough time with them, more than time than I've ever spent with them during this pandemic. And I have been buying things off Chewy. I've been making sure that I've been really, really staying on top of, their teeth and the dental hygiene and, special shampoos that are being made and special items. I know for Christmas, they had a very big Christmas for them to be puppies. I want to say they had a better Christmas than I had. And Chewy has everything. And Chewy stock, it had went up. Now, again, all of the stocks that I'm mentioning, they have saw a dip, especially towards the end of February, coming into now the beginning of March. And this is about all across the board. I want to say the next stock that I'm going to speak on, Square. Square is actually doing pretty well right now. I haven't seen that Square really took too bad of a hit. So during the pandemic, a lot of millennials have been sent home to work. And I know for one, and speaking for myself, I've done way too much shopping, especially in the beginning of the pandemic. It was like, okay, so we can't go anywhere. Tax time had just hit and we were all in the house. You ordered what you're going to get. You got your food from the grocery stores. That was the only place in Target, I want to say, were the only places in my neighborhood that was like open. Obviously there was a capacity limit, but for the most part, the supermarket and Target were open. So those were the places I would go to shop in person. But for the most part, I'm very much a germaphobe, and COVID definitely put my alerts very on high. So I was the type that was shopping. And one of the stocks that I saw doing very well was Square, because again, people are changing the way that they're shopping. I know that there have been some business owners are being very creative in how they're selling their products, and they've been doing what's called pop-up shops or vending shops, where maybe 5 vendors get together. They tell a few people to come through, make sure no one's at capacity, and they sell some items that way. Just another way to get through the pandemic. And during that time, while you're in person, a lot of people don't want to handle cash. So because of that, many business owners have adopted Square. I use Square for one of the businesses that I assist with. And there's a card reader, and they can swipe their card. You can take digital transactions. For one of my businesses, I have a landing page that's only Square, and you go there, you book your service that you need from me, and you can pay right through there. You can book the service right through there. You can ask questions through that site. I mean, Square was ready for this. I mean, Square has always been one of those stocks that have just always looked very appealing to me. And a few of my millennial friends who are in business, they are, they're taking to it. They're adding Square into their checkout. A lot of them use Square, a lot of different Square things for their business operations. So the Square stock has been looking good. I tend to try and pick stocks that are closest to what I use on a day-to-day basis. So again, my dogs, they need their snacks and they need their toys and everything like that. And Pharaoh, my pet, he is a strong beast. And we're working on taming his strength. And, some chew toys lets him release some of that pent-up energy, because besides his walk, it's just, I'm in the house all the time. So he's used to being in the house with me, and sometimes he got to let it out. So Chewy has been getting some of my money, so why not invest in what I'm spending my money on? Again, Square, a lot of business owners that I know personally take advantage of Square, love Square, all the tools that you can use with them. It's just been pretty good. Another stock that I think is interesting is Zoom. So again, all these stocks have taken a dip due to, the bear market that experts say that we're a part of. But Zoom, everyone's using Zoom. I'm part of a few business circles or networks in my area. And one is entitled Forbes the Culture. And a lot of the members in the group take advantage of Zoom to have, conference calls with each other. There's another app called Clubhouse that's gaining some recognition right now. And I do believe they're going to be going public in the near future. But Zoom has been leading the charge with the virtual learning from home, because a lot of the kids are home. A lot of millennial parents with little kids are working from home, and they have to hop on Zoom and deal with, teachers. A lot of business owners are trying to figure out different ways to still stay in touch with their team and their partners who can't meet in person. So Zoom has definitely been championing a lot of things. People see big things for Zoom. I know there was a few complaints about the sound quality. I know that that's more than likely going to grow after time, because I don't believe that they were really ready to handle the capacity of people that were on their server. So, businesses grow and change with the time. So Zoom is another stock that I saw shoot up and do very well during the pandemic. Another stock that I thought was kind of cool was Teledoc. So Teledoc Health is similar to Zoom, and it's like a cloud-based video communication service. So you call Teledoc, they find a doctor in your location, and you tell them your symptoms. They let you know what they think it is, and they give their expert opinions on it. A lot of people like to call Teledoc for multiple opinions, and then from there, right from, it's a telehealth service, so right from there, the doctor can prescribe you a prescription. They'll send it right to your local pharmacy, and you go and you pick up, your prescriptions, or you take what they're telling you. You go into your PCP. You might have to get some evaluations done. It's just a really innovative way to do healthcare, I think. I remember the first time one of my friends, a millennial who was let go during the pandemic, their job at the time, they were a tech company, and they took full advantage of the Teledoc Health. All the employees had to log in. So, if you were sick, they would tell you to stay home, call Teledoc. And I I thought it was crazy. I'm like, there's no way people are really getting, health advice on like a video conference, but they're championing it and they're doing very, very well. So that was another stock. And then I just briefly want to touch on one more before we go into our break. Moderna. Now, there's a few different vaccine trials going on. I know one was Novavax. At the beginning of the pandemic, Novavax was the hot topic, and then they shot up, I want to say over $300 at one point. And, if you bought in early, I remember the shares were like $50 when I caught wind of it. So they shot up to over $300. If you bought a few shares, you did pretty well. They did see a hit, but, if you made your profits, I say hoorah to you. But Moderna, that's another one. Their effective rate is about 94% against the COVID-19 virus. So a lot of people believe in their vaccine trials. They believe that they'll be able to help with the efforts in getting vaccines to all adults in America. I believe Biden just discussed that about how he feels that by May, I believe that every adult in America should have access to a vaccine. Moderna has been one of those healthcare leading industry names who have been able to keep up with the trials. They've been able to get some things rolling. Their stock has fared pretty well. Again, all these stocks have taken a dip. If you know, we're in the bear market, so it's highs and lows in this stock market game. But those are just a few of the stocks that I think have done pretty well. I know a lot of millennial people, business owners, particularly in my circle, have taken advantage of these stocks. Again, there's Chewy, Moderna, Zoom, and Teledoc, and Square. So, all right, we're getting ready to go into our break. When we come back, we're just going to briefly touch about some innovative businesses I think we should all stay aware of. Some millennials I know are kind of digging their teeth into these businesses and just trying to see, what's going to be the next innovative thing after we come out of the pandemic. A lot of states are beginning to open up. So again, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with some innovative businesses. All right, stay locked in.
Do you work in the world of marketing and advertising? Are you a media buyer or the owner of an agency? Have you been looking for a podcast to help stay on top of all the goings on of those worlds? The Gsmc Marketing News Podcast is dedicated to keeping you up to date on all things concerning marketing and advertising. Get the latest marketing news, from what major businesses have planned for the coming year, to the newest trends in advertising, from podcasts, digital and streaming, to the old standbys of radio, television, and billboards. The Gsmc Marketing News Podcast has you covered, whether you're a marketing agent or a business trying to expand your brand.
Welcome back, everybody. This is your girl Moriah, and you're tuned into GSMC Business Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Again, I'm your host, Moriah. Today we're talking about the impact of the pandemic on millennial entrepreneurs. Not just millennial entrepreneurs, but I am a millennial, so I can speak to my group. I feel like the best because I'm in the middle of it, but a few entrepreneurs, regardless of age, have been hit by the pandemic. We've seen the '08 market crash. Those before us have seen a few recessions and some market crashes. So they're very aware. But the millennials, this is, I want to say, our coming of age. We're in the middle of it. A lot of us have created families already. A lot of the younger leg of us are about to start creating families. I am a dog mom, so I have my little family. We've just seen a lot of things, and the pandemic has definitely impacted the world as we know it. We like to travel. We like to see the world. We like to try new things. We like to do it on a budget as well. So the pandemic has definitely messed up a lot of industries, especially the travel industry. If you can't tell already, I do love to travel. So I was very hurt during the pandemic when I'm like, man, this is serious. I saw loved ones become ill, and I wasn't able to travel and collab with other business owners. So I definitely understand the ramifications of the virus. And because of that, it has caused a lot of young people and old people alike to become very innovative and creative and figure out what is it that I can create or what is it that I can invent to help me deal with this. Like I spoke of earlier, a lot of millennial workers that I know who are part-time entrepreneurs are now full-time entrepreneurs due to the fact that they were laid off from their regular employment. And again, every industry has been hit, so there has been thousands and thousands of layoffs that now result in unemployment. There are about 30 million Americans who are unemployed at this time. And because of that, it causes the creative juices to flow. So there's just a few industries that I just want to briefly touch on who I think right now, and I agree with the studies, have grown. And a great reason for it being is that we're all stuck in the house, right? Even though many states are opening up, a few industries just saw a surplus of activity. So let's hop right into it. What are these industries? The first industry I want to touch on is the home improvement industry. Experts say that they have seen a 140% growth in consumer interest. And I've seen it personally. I follow a lot of young entrepreneurs who are now getting into real estate more heavy, figuring out different ways to flip. I had to move during the middle of the pandemic, and that was stressful because finding a place that wasn't extremely, over budget and that wasn't too expensive was very hard. A lot of owners of these buildings and these homes and these apartments begin to renovate. And, if a certain tenant cannot pay, they have to recoup the money somehow. And so I've seen some home flippers really put their all into another project in hopes to get a tenant in there or in hopes to sell so they can recoup some of their losses. So a lot of people have gotten into the revamping their home, redecorating, because they're like, hey, prices to move are pretty high right now. Let me see if I can add some sunshine to my little cloudy day, So, all right, this is my place. This is where I stay. Let me see how I can fix it up, sprucing it up. I might need a roommate now because I am laid off. And, some people have only been receiving unemployment. Some entrepreneurs have been receiving some of the business benefits that have been released by the government, some benefit payments. So there's been some moving layers, but the home improvement industry has gone up, home gardening. I want to give you one excerpt from a CNBC article that they wrote, and they were stating that keyword searches on how to snake a toilet and home garden were on the rise. Gardening and plumbing went up. I know I had to reach out to a plumber during the pandemic. There was an issue with one of our pipes in one of the bathrooms, and I didn't know what to do. So I had to go online and figure it out because the people who normally help me, they were closed due to the pandemic. They just saw a very slow, not very slow. They saw a decline. I want to say a quick decline, actually, in business. People just weren't willing to pay for certain services. They were trying to figure it out themselves. Couldn't afford to pay those people. So I was online looking up different ways and what to do. I did eventually reach out to a plumber, but I did go to Home Depot during that time, and I found a few things to fix up. And then because I was already in Home Depot, I was looking around. I'm like, well, I haven't been to a store in God knows how long. Let me just see what they have in here. So I ended up buying more than I probably should have. So I definitely added to the home improvement percentage because I was in Home Depot more than I've ever been. It's just certain stores just weren't open, right? I was in Target a lot. especially helping other business owners. Again, there's been some pop-up shops going on, and you want your table to look right, or you want the venue to look right. It has to be spaced correctly. A lot of restaurants were trying to adapt to the change. People want to be secluded in their seating. So, they had to go and buy materials and fix things up. So the home improvement, the building improvement, all of that has definitely increased during this time. Another industry, I just briefly touched on it with the stocks about, for example, the Chewy stock and how that was doing pretty well during the pandemic. Pet products were up 50% during the pandemic. And that's because we've been home. Again, I'm a dog mom, and I have my 2 dogs. I have a pit and a Yorkie, and they are very, very spoiled, probably too spoiled. And I was buying toys and all kind of snacks and different beds for them. And again, Christmas was just crazy. And they knew it was Christmas too. They were up, hyped. They had new clothes. My wife likes to dress the Yorkie in little outfits, so he definitely got some new outfits and things like that. So the pet products definitely went up, and I found a cool organic lavender spray from my pit, and he absolutely loves it. I forget what's all in it. I just know it's organic, it's animal cruelty free, it's all this great stuff. It was very intriguing, so I bought it, and he loves it, so it works out. So the pet products definitely have gone up. I know there was one entrepreneur who is a millennial, and she was selling doggy packages, and then she eventually started making cat packages as well. And she would just put some items together: food, treats, doggy toys, kitty, catnip toys, and she would sell them, and they were flying out the door. Like, she had to keep putting up sold out on her pages because people were just looking for something quick and convenient. They probably didn't want to go into the stores. I'm assuming. I know I didn't want to go into the store, so I did a lot of online shopping. And she would ship them out via USPS or FedEx and UPS, especially because the USPS was seeing a hit due to the pandemic as well. So pet products definitely have saw an increase. Another industry is the home beauty industry. A lot of people, were in the house, and barbershops and salons were closed, and nail salons were closed, and people couldn't go get beautified like they normally do. I know some people went to their state capitol building to, protest against those orders, that these businesses were shut down. A lot of my friends are in the beauty industry, and they do hair, and they cut hair, and they do waxing, and they do there are a few lash techs. And, if the government says we can't operate the business, then a lot of people are going to take it upon themselves to look good. If we felt pretty bad during 2020, the least we could do is look good. I know I was looking into some hair, some hair products and things that I could use and take advantage of. And I have locks, and I was looking for some good beauty products for myself because I couldn't see my loctician for a while. I normally go once a month, and at one point I was unable to go at all. So I had to figure out, what am I going to do? So I started looking up products. A lot of people were taking to cutting their spouse's hair. I know one entrepreneur. Now, although we were not supposed to be meeting in person, there was an indoor gathering limit at the time, depending on the city you were in, and he would do house calls. So, there had to be a very secluded area. He had like a whole suitcase. Like, there was the disinfectant spray, and there was the suit that he had on, and he did pretty well. Now, again, follow state ordinances. You don't want to be fined or anything like that, but just people were just trying to get creative because, again, the beauty industry got hit by the pandemic, and people were just trying to figure it out. So they definitely saw a huge increase in do it yourself home activities. People, I know one hairstylist, she's in her early 30s, and she sent out care packages to her clients because she knew that she couldn't see them in person. So keeping in touch with her clients, staying innovative, doing how-to tips on her social media pages, things like that. People begin to buy her personal hair products. So I know she's definitely added to the growth in the consumer interest because of the innovative way she sold it to her customers, right? And she was giving away free hair tips. I mean, who turns down free, right? So that was a good way to channel in some sales. Another industry that shot up was the gaming industry. And I'm a big gamer. I have an Xbox. I don't get on live and everything like that. It's just kind of like a stress release for me. I'm so busy with business, I really don't have time to play the game anymore. But every now and then, when a new game comes out, I definitely get the games. I'm big on 2K. I love basketball. I love football. And I've got a Call of Duty game. Now, I'm not a big Call of Duty girl, but I was happy to get the game. I mean, I was bored. I was in the house. I'm used to going to mixers and hanging out with other millennial entrepreneurs and figuring out different ways that we're going to sell this and reinvent that and helping someone, with their nonprofit and stuff. And I was in the house. So I'm like, well, what am I going to do? Started playing the game. The game industry definitely saw a jump. And if you haven't been paying attention, this goes back into the stock segment we just spoke on. GameStop saw the craziest increase in their price of shares. Some kids made bank, and I wish I was paying attention because I might have tried to hop in on the wave. It was just crazy. It's a new way. Everything has been impacted by the pandemic, and it's creating new thinkers, and it's creating creative minds. And there's just some industries that you might want to just tap into. The gaming industry, I don't think it's ever going away. I've been playing games since, I want to say, the first PlayStation came out, and I haven't put the controllers down since. I don't think the gaming industry is going away, especially with automation. The way that it's going, you definitely, I'm pro automation, pro AI. You definitely want to hop on this wave. So yeah, the gaming industry definitely saw an increase. Fitness and health, I'm not surprised at that. A lot of people were trying to get involved with their health. People were getting more in touch with nature because we couldn't go and hang out in person. So what do? We go to parks. We were going to rec centers. People are working out. People are running. I remember I was training for the Broad Street Run. I finally was going to train and do it. I trained for the Broad Street Run and then got shut down because of the pandemic. So I took to the park, and I took to, going out, hanging out, working out. My wife is pumping for the Peloton bike. I'm not sure if we're going to get that just yet, but she's definitely pushing for it. She definitely took advantage of some fitness gear. I know I copped up on some good fitness gear. I have this really nice jump rope that I bought. It's a matching set too. It's like green and brown and black. It caught my eye. I hadn't been in the store. I finally got in Target, and I'm like, well, I do want some more workout equipment. Got some dumbbells and everything like that. So many people have been more concerned with their health, their pets, finding leisure activities like gaming, home improvement, trying to make their space look a little bit better. When you're feeling down, you want your space to feel good, right? So again, those are just some industries that you might want to get involved in. I know there are a few people. Shout out to my cousin, Chucky. He's a fitness coach, and he was hosting some virtual classes as well. So the healthcare industry is, the self-health, getting fit, that industry is definitely seeing a boost. So you might want to get involved, okay? So we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to get into my favorite segment, Hometown Heroes. I'm just going to touch on a few people in my city, Philadelphia, who are doing their thing, looking to add this to every episode, touching different cities around the country with some innovative entrepreneurs, taking advantage of the opportunities presented to them, and, making some really cool waves in the industry, all right? Stay locked in. We'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be, visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Back. It's your girl Moriah. Again, you're tuned into the Gsmc Business Podcast, brought to you by the Gsmc Podcast Network. Again, my name is Moriah, and today we're talking about the impact of the pandemic and how millennials have been dealing with it, in particular millennial entrepreneurs. I am a millennial entrepreneur, so I feel like I'm in the thick of this thing, and I'm seeing everything that's going on, right? It's a lot going on, but I think we're doing pretty good, right? So yeah, the pandemic has definitely messed up some industries. It's definitely hit, the Airbnb industry. It's hit the ride sharing with Uber industry. It has hit the travel industry tremendously. So a lot of entrepreneurs who did have a part-time job or a full-time day job and were part-time entrepreneurs are now full-time entrepreneurs due to the pandemic, due to all the layoffs, due to the 30 million Americans who are currently unemployed. A lot of my friends who are millennial entrepreneurs were let go. So I definitely saw that in my close network. So, it's been 2020 has been rough, but I think things are looking better. Especially with the new financial literacy wave and everyone hopping onto stocks and trying to figure out how they can invest and grow their money. And then we've had some good industry boost with, the self-help industry, getting fit, getting right, getting in shape. The pet industry saw an increase because we're home with our furry friends all the time now. The gaming industry, because we're bored at home, once you handle work and then you get off and you shut your computer down if you're working remote like me, you need something to take your mind off all the stress. You might want to hop on the game. So the gaming industry saw a growth. I had to move during the pandemic. And, home improvement, looking around, finding some new pieces of furniture. I didn't splurge. Again, it's a pandemic. I don't want to spend all my monies. So I definitely found some deals in the Home Depot and Target and renovated. That industry definitely saw some growth. The beauty industry, experts have been saying that it's going to continue to grow and grow. So I'm not surprised that the beauty industry has grown. I have a business, a part of the beauty industry called Lady M's, and we saw influx of customers looking for nightwear, loungewear, because we're not going anywhere, but we still want to look good, right? You look good, you feel good. So we definitely saw an increase in sales. So the beauty industry definitely saw a boost. And in my hometown, in particular, there has been a few businesses, a few owners that I've seen who are just taking advantage of this time and just really mixing the old school with the new school. I think that basically describes the millennial entrepreneur. We're a little mix of this, a little mix of that. We make our own little mix and then we present it to you, right? So just to hop right in, there is, to speak on my brand, Lady M's Fashion Bands, during the beginning of the pandemic, around the beginning of March, I want to say there was a shortage of personal protective equipment, or PPE. Now, while we are a hair accessory line, we focus on hair accessories. One of our sisters is in the healthcare industry, and she was, kind of going through her daily stress of there's just not enough PPE for all the employees to go around. It was a shortage at one point. And we got creative. We got very innovative, and we figured, how can we help at least her department. If we can't help a full hospital staff because we're just not that big yet, how can we still be impactful? So what we did was shift efforts, and we created masks. Face mask with the surgical slot in it, so you could put, the filter in the mask, and we gave instructions on how to wash the mask and to be mindful to wash it every day and things of that nature. And we were so surprised with the support. It was just crazy support. Like, we started it with the one department at the hospital, and then those hospital workers were so happy because we were giving it away to medical workers for free. If you were a medical worker, we just needed to see the badge with your first name and the medical facility you worked at. And you got a free badge shipped to you. And then it just spread like wildfire. So other people just wanted to buy a mask because they're like, hey, you're making them. There's a shortage. We can't find them in the store. So we were constantly running out of material. So we weren't the only ones. I'm just speaking from my experience. There was a lot of other brands who hopped on that same wave. We're thinking, how can we impact the community? That's what the new millennial entrepreneurs are doing, I feel. We're just trying to figure out ways to really connect and to really embrace what's going on around us. And although the pandemic can be pretty scary, I think a lot of people are taking advantage of the time is now. People are looking to the business owner, the small business owner, to really fill the needs and really fill the gaps that those bigger brands just can't do. Not that they don't want to. They might just be so big that they're just, certain things are just not on the table of focus at the time. So that's something you want to be mindful of when you do become an entrepreneur, when you do get into business. If you begin to balloon, I'll say when you begin to balloon, we're optimistic over here in business, right? When you begin to grow, you want to be understanding that efforts and tasks do change. And I do feel that a lot of big businesses are unable to really keep up with the little guy in this little neighborhood, in this little section of this little town. The small business owner, I believe, it's what's holding this all together. It's the glue. All right, so some hometown heroes that I just want to shout out. There is one guy, his name is Derek. He operates, it's called Philly Express. So if you all remember, the USPS, United States Postal Service, was seeing a hit due to the pandemic. They were unable to really get mail packages out on time. I have a few brands that I help operate, and sending something from one end of the city to the next end of the city was like, it took almost 3 weeks. I remember for one customer to get her stuff, and I'm just thinking like, man, when I did the GPS, I'm like, for all that, I could have just dropped it off myself. Like, it was so frustrating as a business owner. And this guy, he has Philly Express. Philly Express is basically like a hybrid version of your traditional mailing services. So he has same day and next day delivery, and you go to his website. It's very, set up very well, very nice, very easy. You go to his website, you set up an account. They don't ask for much information, just the name of your business, your address, your pickup address for where you want the packages picked up. Him and his team or one of the teammates will go to the pickup location, and then they'll take the packages. You pay them at checkout, and they deliver the packages for you same day or next day. So they handle in the city and the surrounding counties, and he's looking to grow. And I believe that this is happening. I do know that this is happening in other cities. I do believe this is going to be the new wave of delivery. I think we're understanding as business owners that we cannot rely and place all of our efforts on our main lines of mailing. So he's being very innovative, doing an awesome job. I have deliveries go out with him. I know a few other businesses who have deliveries go out with him. The customers love it because they're getting their packages, they're ordering it with us. We have our turnaround time of about 3 to 5 days, and then they get it within those 3 to 5 days because he's doing same day, next day delivery. It's been so easy. It's been very, very easy. Very competitive rates compared to your main mail carriers. So definitely want to give him a shout out. There's another young lady. Her name is Deja, and she has the Give Back Peace Initiative. And she just recently went into one of, I would say, the most dilapidated neighborhoods in Philadelphia, which is known as the Kensington area. And she did a whole give back. There were clothes, there were food. The nonprofit business owners, they kind of get swept under the rug when you talk about the economy and how businesses are taking a hit. Nonprofits are taking a hit as well. They're very much in people's faces, Again, it's the Give Back Peace Initiative, and she went into the neighborhood with her team. Everyone was masked up. Definitely some social distancing going on. They were giving out food. They gave out pizza and blankets to the homeless. And it was just great to see these young entrepreneurs in the thick of things, really doing things to change their community, especially now that the city is opening up more. Those nonprofits are able to do more. They're able to do what they truly love, which is being in the midst of the people and really doing some community outreach. So I wanted to give a huge shout out to her. I know there's other cities doing it as well. I've already started looking up some other cities for our next Hometown Heroes segment. So definitely stay locked into the podcast. It's going to get lit. I just love when the young people take over and really run with the baton, of changing and growing with the times. All right. And then there's another business. It's called Sister Talk PHL, and they specialize in helping single mothers with some programs, with some outreach information. They do clothing and food drives as well. And that team over there has just been shaking things up all summer. I remember at one point in the summer, they were giving away washer and dryer machines. And, they had to collaborate with other businesses. And, the delivery times can be slow. Getting things to the mothers isn't as easy as it used to be. But they are definitely taking advantage of their niche. They do health screenings for some of these families. So, it's a lot of collaboration efforts that go into that. I just think they're really shaking things up. I know a few businesses that are in the city are trying to create apps where you can go through the app and you can find these businesses. The millennial entrepreneur, we're really just looking to different ways of how we can all bring us all together and be safe while we're doing it. The pandemic has definitely opened up our eyes that the way we were handling business and the way we were hosting events and things like that just wasn't as good as it could have been. The distancing, I personally love the distancing, especially while flying, having those separated seats. It's kind of like, okay, we just need a little bit more space. We are a little cramped in here. We are on top of each other a little bit. Some of these businesses are figuring out ways. Some of these young entrepreneurs are figuring out how to keep everyone in touch, still impact the community. I think small business is there for a reason. It's for the community. It's a staple of the community. So you always want to give your community the flowers, while they're still operating, while they're still running. A lot of businesses don't make it past year 5. And the fact that these young people are coming in and being innovative, figuring out different ways to still handle business operations, regardless of a pandemic, communicating more, taking advantage of social media so much. I've seen so much business on social media that I've never seen before. And that's because, you could host a mixer and meet in person and you handle business and you go home. Now it's not the same. You have to figure out, okay, how can we interact with each other? How can I take advantage of Zoom and host a class and then let those students, use my Square link to pay me for the service and to share their feedback and things of that nature? And how can I host this workout class? And how can I help these mothers by hosting classes and, help these kids by tutoring them through Zoom and through all these different apps? And I know one of my friends, she was helping her and her friend, they were both helping run a health class after school, and they use Zoom. And, you know, that industry has seen a boost. So the kids, they were able to receive, you know, some health information. And it was just a really cool experience. So the hometown heroes, the hometown entrepreneurs, the hometown nonprofits, they definitely get all the kudos from me. I think we always have to keep in mind that they are helping to keep all these things together. I feel like the hometown heroes are the glue. So just wanted to give a nice little shout out to all the hometown heroes out there. Your work is appreciated. We see you. We love you. I love the work that you're doing. I think you're doing an awesome job, so keep it up. You never know, you might get shouted out. I do my research. I like to find the businesses that no one's really looking at or no one's really caught wind of yet. I love the new. So be on the lookout for some more hometown heroes, all right? Well, again, my name is Moriah, and thank you very much for tuning into the GSMC Business Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'd just like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show, write us a nice review, let us know how we're doing. Very, very appreciated. We love all the listeners. Shout out to all the listeners. And if you could follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, that would be awesome. The Twitter, I'm tweeting every day, you know, giving you some good tips, giving you some good news, industry updates, all that good stuff. So stay locked in, all right? Peace.
You've been listening to the GSMC Business News Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type GSMC into your favorite podcast app to find all of the shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, from business news to weird news. Please subscribe to the podcast and follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's podcast.